Hey, good evening. I see that we got somebody that rejoined. I don't know who it is, but thanks for joining. I am live with a 20-second delay. I was hoping I wouldn't have a 20-second delay, but we have a 20-second delay, so bear with me now. Video advanced. Alright, if that is... yeah, I had to also, Joe. I apologize for that. I had to end the stream. The shirt's about to come off because I'm getting hot in here. So we'll wait to see if anybody else can get in here. Unfortunately, it's going to be a different link. But if you guys can spread the word, I don't have any way to communicate. I can't put it out over the ham radio because of concerns with the FCC. Gotta love those regulations, but... Anyway, we only have one. Joe, is my audio messed up? Because it was tripling on the last. It was tripling on the last one. Alright, cool. Good to know. Okay, so it's about a 20 second delay. Okay. Thanks, Jordan. Alright, so if it seems a little slow, it's because there is a delay in the streaming to the YouTube and then the YouTube back to you guys. I'm having the same problems. I'm watching it live here on my cam. Anyway, I'm going to see if we get a few more viewers in here. I appreciate you guys joining, especially you, Jordan. I've been begging you to get into this with me for a while. And actually, Jordan, I'm going to show you this evening, since you could be my guinea pig. What I'm going to do is try to send you an SMS text from my DMR mobile radio, and I know that you were interested in that 878 or the 868 model, the Anytone 868, and I had talked you out of it. And I'm glad I did at this point, just because it's a little complicated to program and all that. But if you get into it, you can watch some of the tutorial videos that I have for you. But anyway, let's give it a couple more minutes. Hopefully, let's see. It's saying the bit rate is over what it recommends. So let's see here. That should go back up here in a minute. Anyway. Yeah. Sorry for the delayed reaction. I think you'd have to convince my wife of that one, Jordan. She's been pretty patient so far already, since I've spent over $2,000 in equipment I think I've spent more on radio equipment than I have on the maintenance of our vehicles, so she's not too happy about that. And unlike Anchorman and modern day news broadcasters, I do have pants on, so if you can bear with me, I got to stand up. I'm going to take off my shirt, and I'll get back down because it's pretty hot in here. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, that DX Commander, I know, Joe, I know that K3BZZ, he loves that thing. And I was hoping he could get in here tonight, maybe share some information. And Jordan, I'm sure you're seeing Mr. Joe in there. Mr. Joe is, I don't know if you're amateur extra or not, Joe, but I know you're at least general. So if you ever want to learn anything when I'm not around, Jordan, Mr. Joe, he can give you some tips and pointers. But anyway, okay, so we have 5 viewers. I wasn't expecting a big turnout tonight. So throughout this video, if you guys have any questions, no question is too stupid. Feel free to ask if you're having technical difficulties or anything like that. And Joe answers extra since '05. Okay, cool. All right, so why did I get in ham radio? We'll go ahead and introduce one more time Farmhouse Ham Radio, KC3QPJ here, and welcome to my channel and my first live stream. So why did I get into ham radio? Okay, well, Jordan's brother had an idea. Now, I've been into radios for years. Everybody's been a kid. We've loved the walkie-talkies. Does this kind of make you feel like a kid? Kind of, sort of. Kind of, sort of. But it goes well beyond that. Now, what was this, about 6-7 years ago, I got into the CB thing again, and that's an AM broadcast. But ham radio, 90% of it is FM, frequency modulation, which actually is a more efficient carrier wave than AM. And why did I decide to become a ham radio operator? Honestly, being out here in the middle of nowhere, sometimes you don't know if you'll have cell service, but it's really just mainly with everything that had been going on politically. It was a form of disaster preparedness for me. So that's why I started getting into ham radio. Also, I just wanted a better way to be able to communicate back and forth with family members that already had their license. And my brother-in-law went with me the same day to go take our test. So that was cool to have somebody go on the buddy system and go and take the test, and it wasn't really that hard. But now that I've been into it, and I didn't realize how much was into it, and how many different options were open just to even the beginning class of license, being the technician class. For the people that are joining it that aren't hams, you have your technician class, your general class, and your amateur extra class operators. Each class allows you different privileges. And what I'll do is real quick, and I'm still watching the comments, guys, so if anybody has any comments regarding anything, just let me know. You're going to see me staring up at my screen for a minute, but we're gonna bring up a frequency chart real quick for those that don't know. And Joe, I know this is first nature to you at this point, so bear with me a minute. I just wanted to bring this up here for other hams here, well, other people of interest. So we're going to bring this up on the screen, and hopefully my transitions will work the right way here, and I believe it has. So we're going to click on this. Alright, so if you see all these abbreviations, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse or not. EAGT. This is amateur extra, advanced general technician. The advanced no longer exists, and novice no longer exists. But as you can see on all the HF frequencies, one of the lowest frequencies out there is 60 meters. I know it goes lower than that, but this is what the ARRL lists. As you can see, only your general and amateur extra qualify for most of the frequencies here in the HF bands. Okay. Now, as a technician, I have privileges in 10 meters, 6 meters, 2 meters, and 1 1/4, and also in 70 centimeter, and then in your gigahertz, or your high-end frequencies, your ultra-high frequencies. And the cool thing about it is the power allocations that you can use within these bands legally. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to give out any misinformation or anything, but I'm pretty sure that you're able to use up to 1500 watts as a technician within the 2 meter and 70 centimeter bands on simplex. If I'm wrong, just let me know. But either way, it's really cool, because even though you're transmitting FM, you get higher power allocations. Like the CB radios, they only get you 5 watts of power. Most of your mobile units give you 50 watts of power FM. Then you can change your type of modulation. Well, not modulation, but your carrier can be either an analog carrier or a digital carrier. And I've come to love the digital. The digital simplex has just been awesome. So this is the other reason why I became a ham, is because of experimentation. There's so much to experiment with. Another reason I got into it was for disaster preparedness, because I don't know if you guys remember. I know all of you are old enough to remember when 9/11 happened. We also had an earthquake not too long after that where phone lines were down and jammed with the cell network. That doesn't happen with ham radio. You can always find a way to communicate via either a repeater or a digital network or what have you, but there's always a way to communicate with it. So if you're in a family type of situation where you can't get a hold of family, there's ways to get around that. Now, do you have to be a ham radio operator to do it? No, and I can tell you the other alternative that I'm trying to help people learn if you don't want to take a test. Some people don't have the time, and Jordan, I don't know if you actually have the time or it just doesn't interest you that much. Sorry to keep singling you out too there, buddy, but some people don't have time to study. Some people don't feel like they're smart enough. But look, guys, y'all know me. I'm kind of smart in some regard and really stupid in others. But, you know, if I can figure out how to do all this with a computer, and I'm computer illiterate, I studied for an hour a night for 3 weeks, went and took my test and passed with flying colors. So there's never any limitations to the type of communications you can achieve with two-way radio, whether it being GMRS, ham radio, or using your cell phone to get involved with ham radio. And that's the other thing that's really cool, is you don't need to even buy a radio to start out in ham radio. So anyway, and here's the other thing that you guys got to take into consideration. Some people can up their phone on contracts, and everybody's like, why would I use a radio when I got a cell phone? Cell phones aren't fun. And radios are a heck of a lot cooler to play around with. I know that's not a good argument for the hobby, but in the same regard, the radio will always be there. Analog communications are still a very efficient way to communicate, and now that you're able to communicate with digital, it's real good. And Josh, sorry, what's going on, man? I'm glad you joined. So the other cool benefit of being in ham radio and GMRS or two-way radio is meeting good people. It's such a good community of people. I have met 2 ham operators that I didn't really care for, but that's out of the hundreds that I've met. So I'm going to turn my radio down here for a second, guys. But anyway, that's, it's been really cool. And meeting these new people, I'm going to tell you, they're the most giving people that I've met. They take you under their wing. There's a lot of people, like I said, they can irritate you, but try to get what you can knowledge-wise from them because, heck, they've been into the hobby a lot longer than you. But, no, not worried about you stealing my thunder, man. This is informal and cool Q&A if you guys have questions when I'm done here. So, last thing I will say is it's addicting, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to get into. You know, you can, even if you take your license, and now they have changed it used to be free, but now it's $35 to get your ham radio license, but it's also lower now to get your GMRS license. I think those changes take effect the 16th. I think it's the 16th of this month. So it'll be cheaper to get your GMRS license. It was $70. Now it's only $35. So Josh, having the kids and all that fun stuff with the GMRS, man, your whole family is covered. Your whole family is covered under the GMRS license. Heck, everybody except for probably the family dog. So, that's the good thing about GMRS. So, what are the advantages? Well, let's do this, and then I'll take some questions from everybody because I don't want to be too long-winded and listen to myself talk. But what are the advantages from going from CB radio to GMRS to ham radio? CB radio is limited to AM broadcasts and single sideband. By law, you're not supposed to transmit over 5 watts power on a CB. Did I modify mine? Yes. Was it breaking the law? Yes. Will the FCC enforce that? No, not really. Basically, the truckers took over the CB radio bands and whatever. Now,
The downside to CB radio, it's good for about 5 miles line of sight when you're on the road. You might get lucky and talk off of what they call atmospheric skips sometimes, and you could get hundreds of miles, but it's a rare occurrence with AM CB. If you have a stationary fixed station where you have high elevation with a CB, then you can be apt to get out a little bit further. But it's all simplex. It's radio to radio, one frequency to one frequency, so it limits the amount of communication that you can have on the CB. On the upside, they are starting to make CBs now in the United States instead of them being AM. They are going to start using FM modulation for CB radio in what they consider the 11 meter bandwidth, which Joe, correct me if I'm wrong again, I think it's in 27 megahertz band, which is still considered HF frequencies. So you're limited with the CB radio. Now you move up to the FRS. We'll just talk about FRS. FRS is limited to a maximum of 2 watts. The radios that you use with FRS, it's the blister packs that you get in Walmart, the two-way radios, 35 mile range or 50 mile range, which we all know is a bunch of garbage because they won't do it. The FRS radios are limited to 2 watts. They cannot have a removable antenna, and when it boils down to it in radio, you're going to find out real quick if you decide to get involved in the hobby that at the very least your success of your transmissions always boil down to the type of antenna that you're using. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be tuned properly. And of course, a smaller antenna is not going to propagate as far as a larger antenna, or an antenna that's actually measured as close to the bandwidth that it's supposed to be. So that being said, that's its limitations with FRS. Your average line of sight transmission on that is a mile tops. Now here's where GMRS changes the game. GMRS, like I said, it's cheaper now, $35. Your whole family's included. There's no test to take. You get a call sign. You share the call sign with your family. You can use interchangeable antennas. And a correction on that, thank you, Joe. CB is 26 and low and 27 megahertz. HF goes up to 30 megahertz, 11 meters, right? Gotcha. Okay, so Joe's got some good information going in there. Now, a lot of you guys don't understand the frequencies, and you can't let that bother you if you ever get into ham radio, even with GMRS, because a lot of the GMRS radios that are on the market are channelized. They are also programmable to be able to get into repeaters, and that's the game changer right there. Something that the CB radios cannot provide is repeater service. Your service with a specific channel increases exponentially with a GMRS radio. So more power, better antennas, slightly more expensive equipment, but you get what you pay for with these radios. Okay, you absolutely get what you pay for. And that goes with ham radio as well. But we're almost there to the ham radio. Now, what's the advantages of ham radio? Well, just as a technician, 20 years ago, you'd be lucky to be able to talk around the world as a technician or a novice operator. You're very limited into the bands that you could use. I think 6 meters and 10 meters, you had some privileges and voice in there like you do still today, but very limited in that range. I think that's been expanded a little bit to include single sideband. Is still single sideband, guys. It's in that frequency, but somehow it was explained to me it kind of bends around the frequency that you're transmitting on and makes it a little more efficient. It makes no sense to me either, but single sideband is a very efficient way to communicate in HF, and that's still, something that a technician with a technician's license like myself can use. So the biggest advantages now is, even as a technician with the advent of digital radio, I'm allowed to talk around the world using different talk groups. I can even semi-privatize. Keep in mind, the FCC will not allow you to encrypt transmissions legally. If you're caught encrypting your communications, which some of these radios will do it, but it's not legal.
but you can have semi-private conversations. And I know you guys know about the old Nextel phones. I mean, Josh, you had one when I first met you, if I remember correctly. I know Jordan had one for a while too. But that's the cool thing about DMR radio. I can punch your DMR ID into my radio, hit you up, and it's just you and me talking. Nobody else hears. And some repeaters don't support that, but I do know that the repeaters that are on what they call the Brandmeister network will support that. And if you guys do the research and you have questions about that, we can answer that later. So the biggest advantages of ham radio are the communication options: AM, FM, single sideband, digital communications, and the way the manufacturers produce their radios to accommodate what you want to use the most. It's been exciting, guys, and I know a lot of you keep hearing me pressure you about ham radio this, ham radio that, but it's amazing. I mean, without the use of a cell phone on 2 watts of power, I can reach all the way down to the people in Baltimore County or even on the Eastern Shore by using a linked repeater system, just to talk to the people that I know that aren't on ham radio yet. And it's really cool how they can link the systems together. Some of them are linked together, most of them are linked together via internet protocol, but there are some that are linked differently to where that system won't fail. But emergencies, man, there's a lot of different things that you can utilize the radios for if you lose your cell phone or what have you. So that being said, I got into it, one, because I really wanted it for disaster preparedness, and I knew it was a more efficient form of communication than a CB radio, especially if cell phone networks go down. The average range is so much better than a CB radio, and it'll outperform a cell phone any day of the week based on where you are. Cell phones are very limited. You have to have that connection with the tower. With the CB radio or the ham radio, oh, don't kill me, Joe. With the ham radio, it's much better. So, if you guys have any questions, I can tell you my average range, and here's the cool thing about this: my average range, just by using the 10-foot antenna that I have on my roof, from my house is about 85 miles. South-southwest, and because the north and northeast of me is mountains, I'm limited to about 70 miles. On a really good day, I can get out hundreds of miles on tropospheric ducting. I haven't had one of those long-range contacts from where I am now, but I do go up on what they call Gambrels Park out in Frederick, about 4 miles west of the city limits of Frederick, at Gambrels Park Tea Room. And man, it's not uncommon up there all the time, 120 to 140 miles, and that's just on very low power. I can do that on a 37-inch mobile antenna because I've got that elevation. So it's a pretty efficient form of communication. So anyway, if you guys have questions, I'm willing to sit and answer and listen. And if you guys just want to shoot the breeze and say hey, because we finally got Jordan and Josh together. There's a bromance going on in here I didn't think would happen, but good to see you both in here. And I can also, while I have you guys in here, give you ideas of what startup costs would be, who you can get in touch with to take your test, what websites that you can look at. But GMRS, I'll tell you guys, that's come a long way also. And looks like Tammy's in here. How you doing, Tammy? So GMRS, with the repeaters that are going up, you can look up on mygmrs.com once you get your call sign and figure out where your local GMRS repeaters are located in Baltimore County, Carroll County, wherever you are in the state. So sometimes people just don't have the time for the test. I had to take a pause there for a minute. Yeah, that's what scares me about you there, Jordan. But anyhow, Joe, I appreciate your information on my rambling here. But if you guys have any questions, spout them out. I'll answer. No questions too stupid. and we'll sit here and do a quick Q&A. Get a sip of my coffee before it goes cold. Look, if you guys can find it in Lancaster Coffee Makers, Dutch Apple Crumb Cake. They make a killer coffee, man, especially in the K-Cups. But I'll tell you another thing I can do real quick. You guys will have to give me a second to configure my camera. Maybe I might be able to do this. Nope, it's not going to let me do it this way. So Jordan, I'm going to show you guys something pretty cool. I'm going to have to change the properties of this camera real quick, so bear with me here. Running into my software. Hey, look, it's an upside down image. So all right, there we go. All right, I'm wondering if you guys can see this. The cheapest handheld radio setup. Your cell phone, because hey, O2DX, the cats are outside. Honestly, your cell phone, Jordan. Your cell phone is your cheapest because you already own it. That's what the cheapest setup is, because you can access Echolink and repeaters all around the world. And then after that, I would say your Baofeng radios. So actually, I'll tell you what I can do is show you the differences between a couple of these radios. So let's do this real quick. We're gonna. I'm surprised you remembered the cat there. I don't know why that's in there. Okay, so. Alright, guys. Here's the first cheapest. Okay. Now, this says that it's a BF-R3. Alright, but this is the same thing as UV5R. You guys can look this up on YouTube or Amazon while you're even watching me do this. This is what a UV5R looks like. It's the same body, it's the same everything. They come with a stiff rubber ducky antenna like this one. Okay, now Jordan, I know I sold your brother and you guys those to monitor and then all that fun stuff, but these are the cheapest. This is how a UV5R comes most times, is just with the with a small rubber ducky antenna and a normal size battery, like an 1800 milliamp hour battery. Those right now on Amazon are going for $25. Now, the one that's special with what you have, Jordan, is that they are capable, and like I've told you before, they are capable of transmitting outside the amateur bands. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So, yours is special, and that one I believe was right around $25 when it first retailed. Now, the difference between the UV5R and this radio I bought an extended life battery. This one is also and sorry about the autofocus if it's not focusing real well. The difference between the UV5R and this radio right here has 3 bands built into it. It has the 220 band, and I could show you guys this on the frequency chart, which is not available to the average person. You have to be licensed to use these radios, and that's the other thing I want to stress. If you want to use these radios for anything, you have first of all have got to be a licensed amateur radio operator. Legally, you cannot use the UV5R or anything that will transmit outside the amateur bandwidth. You are legally not allowed to transmit on them, even if you are licensed. If it will work in the GMRS mode or the GMRS frequencies where they're up in like the 462, and you try to transmit on that radio using GMRS, you're breaking the law, because that radio is not designed for that. Okay, and I can show you another radio that's not designed to be a GMRS radio, but it will work legally as a GMRS radio. And Jordan, this is the one that I talked you out of. So this one will operate in the GMRS bands, and it needed to be unlocked in order to do that. Now, the only way I can transmit with this one on GMRS is if I have this thing in what they call the professional mode, because these radios were designed in China to be used as commercial radios. Most of your commercial bands, especially in the US, start around 420 megahertz and go up to like 439 or something, which is in what they consider the 70 centimeter bandwidth. So then you have the 70 centimeter amateur bands, which this radio also will operate in, and then you have your GMRS bands, which are up in the 460s. Now, I can use this legally only if I have this in professional mode. You know what? You guys keep talking about my cat. But right now this radio is in amateur mode, so I can't legally use this as a GMRS radio until I plug it into the programming software and lock its ability to be programmed from the face of the radio. Once that's done, and I know I'm using the proper bandwidths and the proper power restrictions, then this radio can be used in GMRS. But this is also a digital mode radio. So the receiver also in radios like these are much better. But right now these radios are retailing for about $300. So I tell you what, guys, let me go see if the kitties are waiting out in the hallway. So many people were asking about them. I didn't think that would be a thing on this channel. So bear with me a second. But yeah, post any questions, because there's a delay. And if you, like I said, no question's too stupid. No question is too stupid at all. And I will see if the kitties are out in the hallways. Give me a second. Well, guys, no kitties in the hallway. And if you hear the whining in the background, that's my computer tower. The fans are about to blow up on it. And if you guys would like a demo, I could do a demo for you guys real quick. Yeah, I noticed that. Phoebe is always, she's always jumping into my picture all the time in here. So, yeah, give me 1 second. If you guys would like a demo, I can show you a demo real quick of how I can text message somebody from this radio right here. So who wants to be the lucky participant of a text message? And then you can type in whether or not I got it, and you could type in the magic word. But if who wants to be a recipient of a text message, I can do it to anybody's cell phone. So if you, I have most of your phone numbers, and I will text you a magic word, and I can tell you if it's right when you type it in. Okay, Jordan, you want it to be you. Okay, let me scoot my mic over here for a minute. All right. All right, we're going to go down on band B here. And this can actually show you guys partially. Now, I know the contrast is absolutely awful. All right, but we're going to try this here. All right. And I tell you what, just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you how to start. Jordan, I'm not going to put your phone number out on the video. So we're going to go into my hotspot here. Actually, let's get out of here. All right, you can see this is analog right now. We're going to go into my zone to my hotspot. Where did my hotspot go? All right, there we go. SMS text. That's actually my hotspot. Okay, Jordan. So what I could do is show the first steps, but I'm not going to show your phone number. What I got to do is key down. Okay, that's going to trigger the system to let them know I'm getting ready to send a text message. Then I'm going to get into
my messages. We're going to do quick text. And this is what I got to start out with. So, Jordan, from here on, I'm going to pull this camera away so that people can't see your phone number. We'll point that down. All right, heck, I got to get your phone number up because I totally forgot it. All right, give me a second, guy. It's probably going to time out before I get to you. Alright, Mr. Jordan, I got your number in here, so we're going to start out. We're going to change to numbers, and you are 410. And after that, no more. Okay, and then Jordan, once I send this to you, you can send it back. So bear with me. We're still live, guys. And I'm misspelling this on purpose. Trying to be a quick texter. Okay, saying send success. What I'm going to do is I got a confirmation of the send, and I'll show you guys that one new message showing that's a confirmation. Shows that I acknowledge that I sent you the text. That should have been pretty immediate, Jordan. So I can't do you all, Danny, because it's going to take forever. That'll take forever. This is going back to the days of the QWERTY keyboards. Look, you want me to do all you guys, okay? I'm not doing it off of that. You figure that out. So, Jordan, you can also reply. If you reply less than 15 minutes later, that'll come back to my radio. So that text message should have got a my call sign along with it, and you can reply normally to it, and I can get that message back. So whenever you're ready to send it back, there you go, man. There you go. That's exactly what I sent you. That's exactly what I sent you. So now you can text back, and it'll come back live to me on the radio. Now sometimes this system, because it's an old system, it might take a couple hours for it to get back. Actually, the text is coming back in now. Well, let's see what Mr. Jordan has to say. Oh yeah, you shouldn't have done that on live, man. Come on. Oh, good grief. At least I kept it to one of the more mild ones. So yeah, we're not going to go back there anyway. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. Put that on here. Bad man. But that is through my hotspot. I can also do that through Brandmeister repeaters as long as they set that up. But it's also a cool feature. Like, let's say you go hiking out in the woods and for some reason you lose your cell phone.
you're in range of a repeater, because most repeaters, they got those higher elevations, so you're within the range of the repeater, but you lost your phone. There's an option for Tammy saying, I'm curious how well in horrible signal areas. Try to specify that a little bit more, Tammy, because there are areas when you're using repeaters that they can be a little scratchy, but that's also if you're on the fringes of the repeater or you're very close to a repeater. So I can show you guys right now the signal areas for, you're not, okay, so cell phone signals operate on a much higher frequency, and you're only allotted 1 watt, and that's why cell phones have tendencies to drop out here and there. Ham radio is very terrain dependent on the elevation and weather. If you're way down in a valley and you've got a mountain between you and somebody else, you probably won't hear, but that's where the repeaters make up for that. And you know, right now I have a repeater that I can use. I'm going to show you this real quick on my radio. There's the weather channel, Towson GMR. Let's see. Okay, so we're using band B here. I'm going to show you a repeater.
TrafficNet, transcontinental core, outbound capable, no messages. Sam, we're going to come back to you for a comment. In fact, we'll come to you for a comment right now. Keep you moving forward to the next net. I want to thank you, everything you do for traffic handling, though we haven't had any traffic in a bit. I might have to bring something next week. KJ3 up, Pat, comment, please. Go ahead, and then you can take off. Okay, Morgan, very good. Let me know if it gets clear.
All right, guys. So this repeater currently going, and Tammy, this will be for you. This repeater has one of the biggest transmission lines of sight than a lot of other repeaters in our area. That repeater that I just put up there for you, that they're actually having a net meeting on right now, is 57 miles from my house. So that repeater, clean line of sight to my house. Okay, now my antenna on my roof is always obviously going to have a higher elevation than the one in my truck. Okay, but because of where that repeater is, when I'm driving to work every day, I take part in their meetings Mondays through Thursdays if I remember to turn my radio on, and I can talk to them no problem my entire ride to work on 25 watts of power. So I'm not even overloading. Yeah, I'm not even overloading the amount of power that I'm putting into it. So that repeater, if I'm not mistaken, based on my estimates, probably has a coverage area of about 100 miles in every direction, just depending on whether or not there may be another mountain in the way. But people are receiving this repeater down in Baltimore County with no problem. Now also, I can reach, yeah, Joe, that was the 147-300. That's the Blue Mountain. I only put it in as Blue Mountain instead of the call because it's easier for me to remember that it's out of state. But yeah, that's the 147-300. And a lot of people might ask, how do the repeaters work? Well, you need to know what the repeater's output frequency is. That's key. And as Joe just posted in there, Joe just posted the frequency for that repeater's 147.3. That's the output. Then the input is what you transmit to the repeater. So the first thing you program is the output from the repeaters. That's your receive frequency. Then you need to know what your transmission frequency is. So with 2 meter band, which that 147.300, that is 2 meters, okay? And there's a conversion, a math conversion that allows you to figure out, well, why is it 2 meters? Why is it 70 centimeters? I think I got to do research. There's a mathematical formula. I think it's 300,000 divided by the frequency, and that gets you your meters. It might be just 300, but yeah, I think it's 300 divided by the frequency gets you what wavelength you're in. Either way, so you need your receive frequency also. Okay. Then once you get your receive frequency, you're going to need a PL tone. All right. I hate using that term because that term actually was made by Motorola for their version of what is a continuous tone-coded squelch, which I've shown in my videos before. The continuous tone-coded squelch is a subaudible tone that is transmitted along with your carrier to activate that repeater. The repeater will not work without that subaudible tone. So those subaudible tones, there's 150 different subaudible tones ranging anywhere from 67.3 megahertz up to, good grief, 270 some megahertz. So it's a subaudible tone that tells that repeater, hey, I'm trying to use you. You can't really hear it on your transmission, but that's what actually opens the repeater up and allows you to use that repeater, and then you receive the signal back because the repeater is doing exactly what it's saying it's doing. It's taking your signal and rebroadcasting it over a broader area, and it's got those higher elevations. So yeah, that's basically how repeaters work. Now this is all these transmissions that I've done except for the text message to Jordan. They are in FM modulation analog mode. The one that I sent to Jordan was actually a data stream. Okay. All right. Now Joe, Joe put up the proper formula for determining your bandwidth. Okay. So thanks, Joe. I knew it was something like that. Yeah. And radio waves in space travel at the speed of light unobstructed, and the speed of light is roughly 300 million miles a second, or 300 million meters per second. I thought it was miles, Joe. I don't know why I thought it was miles, but you know, as fast as the speed of light, faster than the speed of light. So anyhow, but yeah, I sent Jordan a data stream, which is considered automated packet reporting system, and that is pretty wild. Now, also, Tammy, the carrier for digital transmissions are much more efficient because of the filtering in the radios. It brings up whatever audio that it can, and can actually translate what's pure audio on the carrier and what is background noise, or what they call the noise floor. So generally it's not really propagating any further than yeah, you're gonna have a black eye. You keep correcting me, Jordan. I'm kidding, man. So it is able to translate the weaker signals a lot more. So yeah, I thought it was pretty fast. So digital broadcasts, you know, they say they propagate more, but they really don't. They're just able to pull out the weaker signals and bring them up to bring them up a little cleaner. And with digital signals, it's either there or it's not. So if you're 75 miles away from me on an analog channel, we'll just say 146.52, that's what they call the national calling frequency. A lot of ham radio operators use that for contests, but the 14652 is kind of like the channel 9 on CB. 14652 is called a calling frequency in case you're having an emergency. So the digital transmissions, if you're on a simplex frequency, just if somebody's 75 miles away, we'll say analog first, you're going to get a lot of background hiss. You might hear what they call picket fencing. If they're mobile, you might hear the choppiness in the signal, be nice and staticky and all that fun stuff. Now the magic of digital radio is the digital will filter all that out, and you get a crisp, clean, solid signal until it cannot pick that signal up anymore. And then when it's starting to, it can't pick it up enough to filter it, it'll sound robotic, and then it's gone. You don't get anything else. But I've fallen in love with it. Now there are other radios. I use the Anytone line of radios because they're very inexpensive. And here's another tip for you if you're trying to get into radio. You don't have to spend a lot of money to start up. Actually, I have an announcement. ICOM is coming out with a new radio. If you want to write it down,
ICOM is a very well-made radio. That's what I have in my truck right now. It was one of my first radios that I ever bought. They're coming out with a handheld radio. I think it's going to be very affordable. It's going to be oodles better than a Baofeng radio or a Retevis radio or any $50 radio. Now, I would encourage you, if you can't afford a high dollar radio, stay with whatever your budget will allow you to buy. It is only going to be a strictly an analog radio, but it's going to have a better receiver. Actually, the receiver's not going to be any better, but the filtering is going to be much better. And ICOM comes with a better warranty. I believe the model number is going to be the IC-T10, IT10, but keep an eye out for it. And another thing you can do is keep a lookout for websites like Ham Radio Outlet. They're right down in Woodbridge, Virginia. Heck, I drive down there to get some of my stuff because I don't have the patience to wait for delivery. Gigaparts, like Gigabit, but Gigaparts, and DX Engineering, they're generally the top 3 for parts for ham radios. So that radio, keep an eye out for it, guys, and if you decide to get your license, great. Now, I will recommend, for those of you that are more interested in the GMRS side of things and you don't want to spend a ton of money, the GMRS radios are shocking me. They're starting to become a little more expensive, and that being said, don't buy a Midland. There is a company called Woxun. It's spelled W-O-U-X-U-N, N like Nancy. I think they pronounce it ocean in China, like going to the ocean. So I'm not even going to get into that with all the other podcasts and everything that I've seen. Their GMRS radios are top notch. They are a tad pricey, but if you want to get started in GMRS, that's the radio, in my opinion, to buy to get started. No one has had anything negative to say about the way those radios perform. And if you guys get a chance, and I hate to plug somebody else's channel on mine, if you want a good laugh, Not a Rubicon, look him up on YouTube. He comes across as a little bit of a jerk, but he's a good guy. He's a really good guy, and there are things that he does that I don't appreciate as a ham radio operator, but he does give out really good information when it comes to GMRS. He's probably the GMRS guru of YouTube. We'll leave it at that. So anyway, I am surprised I have more people viewing than I thought would be. And Jordan, what are you doing tonight? Are you doing anything out tonight with your fiance? What kind of reminds me, sir, you didn't tell me you were engaged. I think I just found that out tonight by accident. Got any explanation there for me, sir? Anyway, so I've learned a lot with the people that I've talked to on ham radio. Joe, you've always talked to me when I've been on the hilltop, and I find that awesome. You know, me and Joe live pretty far apart, and I talk to Joe on Simplex all the time. Actually, Joe, if you're still on there, we can give them a taste of Simplex if you want, if you're okay with being on a video, or if you think that's breaking FCC regulations, we can't do it. But it's up to you. I see people asking for signal reports all the time. I can get into my VFO mode, and you could be part of the broadcast there. You just let me know if you're up for that or not, sir, and I'll swap on over there, and then you could say hi to everybody. Oh, you're not home? Oh, cool. Well, that's cool. Okay, no problem. But anyway, guys, pardon me. I need to feed my nicotine addiction for a minute. Bear with me. This is one thing I really want to get rid of, because it's actually just becoming annoying at this point. So Josh, are you in there still with me? I see I have a massive audience of 8 viewers. 8 viewers. You have any questions in there, Josh? I hear you.
I hear you, Joe, for sure. I know how that goes, man. I know how that goes, and when my mom was going through trouble, it was almost the same way for me too. So, anyway, well, enjoy your time there. I'm just glad you're able to join the live stream tonight, and let me know what's up with my lack of knowledge tonight that I can share with everybody else. Come on, guys, everybody's quiet on me. What's going on? Oh yeah, is that for your HF setup? And how long is it? You got 200 feet or 180 feet of wire for your antenna? That's good. I always was told that the long wire on a end fed or a balanced center fed would be one of the best setups here for on the farm. Whoa, really? Holy cow! 650 feet. So that's what HF radio does for you guys. 650 feet of wire, but the radials for HF frequencies, and I can get back to this chart real quick, guys, and show you this chart. And so Joe is probably operating anywhere from 12 meters all the way down to 160. Okay, what those radials do, it provides a ground plane for your antenna. And also, depending on how he is utilizing the antenna, I don't know if you're putting any coils in there, but the coils basically trick it into, actually, yeah, here we go. I didn't mean to do that. Putting coils and wire on the higher end bands, like the 2 meter, 70 centimeter, kind of tricks the antenna into being electrically longer than what it really is. So it allows you to use a shorter antenna to basically be efficient enough to transmit within the rated SWRs of that band and operate real well. So anyway, 80 meters, that ain't too bad. So what's your top end on that antenna? Are you up into the 6 meter band with that antenna? That's cool. That's cool. Now the other things, guys, like when we're talking about the HF bands, it's a whole different ball game because your wavelengths have a tendency. If you were to see the wavelengths of the different bands on a scope, okay, your high-end bands up at your gig frequencies, anything over 900 megahertz, are going to have a sharp curve like this. Then when you start getting into 70 centimeters, you have more of a wavelength. That's what they rate these at, your wavelength, your frequency. So your wavelengths have a tendency to start spreading out, okay? So 2 meters, 70 centimeters, more like a very heavy, sharp curve. 2 meters is a little more gradual, kind of like an ocean wave. I mean, the people that do the analytics on these will know better than me, but when you get into HF bands, they're almost flat in some of the bands, which allow them to stay within the Earth's atmosphere and propagate around the world on very low power. So there are guys out there that'll use 2 watts or even a half a watt to see how far they can travel around the world. That's why when you get into the gig range, throwing a lot of power into a gig range frequency can be unhealthy, for one, And that's why when you have your 5G phones, there's a lot of controversy, but they really use very low power. But if you're using a lot of power, it can become unhealthy, but that's why they don't do well in an urban type environment, because the bandwidth, the wavelength is so tight, it gets no penetrating power. So the lower you go in frequency, which is higher in your meters, because that's how the wavelength shows on its waveform on an oscilloscope, okay? The lower you get in frequency, the better the signal will propagate on lower power, because it has actual more penetrating power in an urban type environment. Now, it's 70 centimeters good within like 5 miles of the city, or in the city about 5 miles in every direction, depending on the power that you're using. But like I said, there's not a lot of penetrating power there. But that's why most businesses that run local will use the frequencies within the 70 centimeter bandwidth. So, 2 meters propagates even better, because obviously your waveform is more gradual, more smooth, more penetrating power. And that's why I like 2 meters. I love 2 meters. And if you get tropospheric ducting, I have a gentleman I talk to all the time. His name is George. He actually made 2 contacts on 2 meters. I don't know if I remember telling you this or not, Joe. Tampa Bay, Florida, and I think the other one was out in South Dakota or North Dakota somewhere. So that would definitely, that's definitely a feat for 2 meters, because the band is what they consider never open. High sunspot activity helps propagation with 10 meters, 60, 40, 80, all that fun stuff. Even 6 meter HF frequencies, what they consider high frequency. So yeah, anyway, everybody's quiet. Any more questions? Anybody have anything for me? I have 8 people, only 5 of whom I've seen in the feed here. So does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, I would think so too. I think even down to Tampa Bay, Florida was probably E-skip too. It could have been tropospheric ducting, which is common on the East Coast. I think there's a guy that puts out a map for that, which works out pretty good. So anyway, guys, you meet a lot of cool people in ham radio, and it's the best form of social distancing. You can talk to them like they're standing right next to you, but you can, you don't have to see them. And you can get out of the conversation anytime. You can fake equipment failure really easily. Simple as flipping a switch. So anyway, guys, some of the ins and outs of this, I'll share this with you. There are some radio operators that can really give this hobby a bad name. They can be a real joy to be around. I have trouble, and Jordan, you know this as well as other people. If people can't approach me with a problem directly, I have a problem with that. A serious problem with that. And then if you approach me with disrespect, I have a problem with that as well. That happens every so often within the ham community, and it's taught me to really just exercise a little bit more patience, because this hobby's supposed to be fun. So if somebody approaches you with a problem, just do the appropriate research on the matter or topic at hand. Check the rules and regulations, because 9 times out of 10 these people won't. They'll go by what they think they know, and then it ruins the fun for everybody. So just cover your bases, and make sure if you get involved with either GMRS or FRS that you stick within the rules and regulations of what you're licensed for. But anyhow, anybody else have any questions? Wondering if Josh was still in there. And oh, by the way, Jordan and Josh, I don't know if you mind me sharing. You mind me sharing what's going on with you? Just because I'm excited for you, if you're still in there. I don't know if Josh is still there. All right, guys. Any more questions? I don't mind answering anything. No question is too stupid. All right. I'm not getting anything. Does anybody want to see a demonstration of anything? I can demonstrate more capability of the radio if you'd like. Anything you guys would like me to do, if you have any questions about functionality. I can also show you that I can reach Towson from here, from my home QTH on a local repeater. I could do that as well. Everything's pretty cool, but I guess I could show you my messy desk now. So let's try that real quick. Show you the different types of the antenna. The antenna that I have, Joe, is that what you're talking about? Oh, yeah, okay. Alright, the tilt mast that I made. So guys, okay, that's one thing I didn't bring up. Ham radio will still get you outdoors also. It's they have contesting. You can do what they call parks on the air or summits on the air, and you want to have a good antenna with you. So if you noticed on my homepage, I have a picture of my tilt mast system that I designed so that I could get a little bit better propagation and a little bit better signal receive with the antenna that I bought. Now I've used two different antennas. I used a Diamond's X50, which was a 5-foot antenna, and then I reverted to the Diamond CP22E. We call it the Charlie Papa 22 Echo. Just sounds cooler when you say it that way. CP22E, which is a monoband 2-meter antenna. Man, that thing was great. But if you notice the picture, that's a mast system that I built. It's a drive over mast system that I used from scrap wood from the remodel on my house. So with the remodel on the house, I just used that scrap lumber to build that tilt mast as a prototype. So I am going to convert that to steel here soon, because it worked really well along with the fiberglass, military fiberglass surplus that I had bought to extend the antenna up to 20. Heck no, it was more like 33 feet in a mobile application, and with that I was able to deploy that mast in under 3 minutes and have it connected to the radio and ready to go in under 3 minutes. And at that elevation, like I said, the sky's the limit on 2-meter, and you can't really expect much more on regular FM frequency modulation for analog than 100 miles at that elevation. Now, a single sideband, which my radios aren't capable of right now, single sideband, it could be hundreds of miles easily from that elevation, just depending on the type of antenna you're using. But that mast system, Joe, I should have weatherproofed a little better. Even though it was a prototype, I was hoping it would last a little longer, but the wood started drying out. It warped and it cracked where one of the hinge pins held it together, so it was no longer usable. But because I have the basic design still in my head, I'm going to convert that to steel. And honestly, it'll probably, if I'm using the tubular steel, I could probably make that shave off about 2 pounds over the wood, believe it or not, because I'll have less surface area to use. Other than that, somebody tried to call me. If you guys don't mind, hang on one second. Anyway, sorry about the phone call. So once it's converted to steel, it'll be stronger with less material. So I've already figured it'd probably be about 2 pounds lighter than the wood. And I can't wait to do that. But you know, money doesn't grow on trees. We all know that. Especially the older we get, we know it. And now my hearing aid batteries decide they want to die. But thank goodness I can't hear anybody anyway on here. I can just watch. But that tilt mast worked out really good. Didn't cost me a dime. The wood was already paid for, and I think that for what it was and as simplistic as design it was an amazing first build, and it helped me to figure out how to stabilize the mast. I left it out overnight during a storm one night because I just didn't feel like packing it up, and I wanted to test how good the wind resistance would be on that mast system. And I know the night that I left it out, I had my 10-foot CP22 Echo up there, my Charlie Papa 22 Echo. Just say Charlie Papa 22 Echo. It sounds so much better. I left that out there overnight, and I didn't use any guy wires. Just left the mast up. I left it up at 30 feet and came out the next morning. It was still in one piece. So it was pretty efficient. It was fairly strong. I mean, if it's holding without any guy lines, if it's holding on a 50-mile-an-hour wind, which it was confirmed even more windy than that, I would say it was a pretty efficient design. So we're going to get my artificial ears working here again, guys. But yeah, anybody can do it. And you know, the cool thing about it is, you know, this is all experimentation. It's all about experimentation. And that's what makes radio a cool hobby, because you're not limited as to what you can do. If you have a background in electronics, you can build your own radio. As long as you're staying within FCC regulations and you want to try something new, that's one good thing about ham radio, is the experimentation with it. So come on, guys. It's a Q&A, and I'm just running my mouth. I want to hear some questions. Anybody else out there that would like to put their 2 cents in? I say I got 7 viewers and only 1 person asking questions. If you don't know where to start, just ask me anything. Ask me anything. Gotta let that sit for a minute. Alright, guys. Well, I don't want to hold up anybody that doesn't want to be here. I have a lot more information that I can share, but I don't want to confuse anyone with terms. So if there's anything that you might want to know about terms, you know, let me know. I can explain different things as far as you know, what 2 meters 70 centimeters is. I can bring up the chart and show you different stuff. So, and like I said, you know, my I was going to say, my channel's mainly for my journey. Yeah, they do have a lot of terms. We don't use 10-4 codes either, people. We use Q codes. Q codes. Remember the Q codes, like Q from Next Generation. I was going to say, the whole purpose of my channel is, if you know anybody that's just starting out, I'm trying to share my journey as a beginner and go step by step to show you what I learn as I go along, and to try to generate the interest in the hobby. My interest was, it's actually grown more since I've been in it than I did before I started. And it's just because the toys are so cool, you know, and it doesn't have to be expensive. So trying to bring that to light to people, to show that it's a great form of communication. And also, the one thing I forgot was the Echo Link. This is where you don't even have to have a cell phone. You don't have to have a radio. You can get on a cell phone, like I was saying. You can find, a matter of fact, I can show you. Let's give you an Echo Link
test real quick. I'll show you how this works from my cell phone. Give me 1 minute. I think all you got to do is search for my channel, dude, and that'll show you where the live stream is. Alright, so hopefully I was having technical difficulty in the beginning, so yeah, just go ahead and search for my channel, Farmhouse Ham Radio, and the live stream should be going. I had to reset the link, unfortunately. Alright guys, so I'm going to back out of that. Alright, let's get down here. I'm going to go over to my OSB here. I'm going to get into my camera. Okay, so this is an Android phone. We're going to turn this down for the contrast, just because, and then I'm going to turn this overhead light off because that's causing problems. Let's see if this is the culprit right here. Yep, that's definitely the culprit. Alright guys. Wow, it's amazing how much light gathering this thing has, so we'll turn it up a little bit. That should do it. Okay. Alright, so there's an app you can download from the Android store, and I believe it also works with Apple phones as well. Alright, it's called Echo Link, and unfortunately, let's see, there's Repeater Book. Repeater Book is a necessity. That's up in this one, but you see the one with the little radio tower. And pardon my fingernails, I beat my hands up all the time. Here's Echo Link. Alright, Echo Link works via the internet, via your cell phone. You can look up repeaters, you can do an echo test, but every repeater that's in the Echo Link system is listed on this app. So you can look it up, and then, you know, you've got overseas Echo Links. Okay, and you can pretty much, once you get your license and you do the studying, you will understand what each one of these numbers mean. Like my number, basically my call sign, each repeater has a call sign. I have my own call sign. Every repeater will have their own call sign. Every call sign has a zone assigned to it, especially in the United States. So there are 9 zones, I believe, in the United States. So whenever you want to look for a local repeater, it's going to have either 2 letters or 1 letter in the prefix of its call sign. Then it will have a number and then followed by 3 letters. There's generally always 3 letters in the suffix of a call sign of a repeater. The one I use up here in Frederick, they call that the W3FDK repeater. So if I go on Echo Link, I can type in W3FDK, do the search, and it comes up with that repeater, and it shows Frederick, Maryland, and it shows the repeater frequency. It shows you what the PL tone is. Okay, this is all for the analog. You don't have to worry about PL tones and all that. Or, you know what? I got to get that Motorola term out of my head. That's frustrating. It's not important that you know the CTCS tones, the continuous tone coded squelch, which is what that PL tone is. But as you can see, it's 141.3 is what the continuous tone coded squelch is for that repeater. Okay, so you don't need to know that information when you're on Echo Link. All you got to do is click on it. It'll ask you to connect to that repeater, and then I'm connected. And it does work, but I'm not going to demo it over the air because I want to make sure I'm not violating any FCC regulations. Okay, so that being said, that's the one good thing about this hobby. You don't even need a radio to get started. You can use your cell phone. Heck, your cell phone, using it as a ham radio as a start, yeah, I mean, but just remember, your network goes down, you don't have a radio. So I try to be prepared in every which way. Right now, just as a technician, I'm covered in my digital modes with my 70 centimeter and 2 meter with DMR radio being able to semi-privatize my conversations like the old Nextel Sprint phones. Okay, I have my FM analog taken care of. Then I also have my 1 1/4 band, which hardly anybody uses. That's the 220 megahertz band, and that's this radio. We can turn that on real quick. This radio's got all sorts of fun stuff. Now here's the good thing about the 1 1/4 band that I feel. I'm gonna flip my switch here. Let's make sure I'm focused in on that radio. Let's go to 3. All right. Here's my 220 radio. There's my call sign that comes up. That's a local Frederick machine. All right. But on simplex modes, which meaning radio to radio, one frequency used for two-way communications, repeater communications use two different frequencies, but they're generally within a few kilohertz of each other. But the 220 band is kind of a happy medium between 2 meters and 70 centimeters because of how the wavelength operates. It has a very much better audio quality on the carrier of that band than 2 meters. It has slightly less propagation than 2 meters, but more propagation than the 70 centimeters, so it's wedged right there in the middle. So it's kind of a happy medium, and a lot of radio operators were very upset with the FCC about 30 years ago when they chopped away about half of that bandwidth, because I believe they were starting to use that for aircraft communications, and then since then they haven't used that band at all. Not that we know of. Joe, I don't know if you're still in there, but I don't know if they're still using that band or not for anything at this point. But anyway, it's always good when you get a startup, start with a handy-talkie, maybe see if you can get into a local repeater with a handy-talkie, and then you can work your way up to a base station. This radio right here, this 220 machine that I use, is a very inexpensive monoband unit with a lot of power. Okay, monoband meaning it only transmits on one bandwidth, which is 220 megahertz. But let me show you the cool thing about it, guys. Each step is a frequency. Okay, this is in 5 kilohertz steps, so I can go all the way up to 224, but every frequency within here holds some way to be able to transmit. Okay, now because the 220 band is so small, it's kind of stinks because your simplex range is very limited. I think there's only like 150 frequencies on that radio that'll allow for transmission on simplex. Now overall, between 70 centimeter, 1 1/4, and 2 meters, you probably have a combination of about, I don't know, I'm just going to guess with the different modes about maybe 5,000 tops frequencies that you're able to use with those radios as far as simplex communications. All the rest of them are eaten up by repeaters or digital modes and stuff like that. So a lot of really upset veteran hams when they messed with the 220 band because it was such a good band to use during that time period. And Joseph, you commented that it was 220 to 222 was moved to land mobile commercial service. UPS had a bid on it for their fleet management, but ended up not actually using it. There you go. Scavenger Pro, do I think 6 meters worth getting into? Absolutely, man. Look, I'll put it to you guys like this. Anytime you expand your ability to communicate with others, it's worth it. 6 meters is what they call the magic band. When it's open, you can talk around the world on very low power. The openings on 6 meters are becoming more common, but I would recommend 6 meters mobile. Don't worry about your single sideband, but 6 meters as far as a home base. I would recommend a nice tuned 5-element or 6-element directional, or what they call beam antenna.
and then see what works best for you, if you're going to horizontally polarize it or vertically polarize it, because if you're using single sideband, which I think you can do in 6 meters as a technician, but yes, absolutely. And the other thing, there is still 6 meter repeaters in your area. If you look in Repeater Book, there are 6 meter repeaters available, and from what I've told, now I have not used that bandwidth yet. However, what I've been told is it has its advantages over the 2 meter band, because it has a tendency to get down into the valleys and low areas of your geography a lot better than the 2 meters. And that's, like I was stating before, the lower you go in your frequency range, the more the smoother the wavelength is, the more it propagates out a little bit better, and it has a tendency to stay within the Earth's atmosphere a lot better. So that's why it's not uncommon when you get into the 6 meter band, which is in the 52 or 59 megahertz. I'll tell you what, let's bring up the band chart here. We'll look at the band chart, and here's 6 meters, 50 to 54 megahertz. As you can see, you got a green and a red bar here, and it tells you what you're allowed to use. Okay. Single sideband obviously is not available in that band, so I was wrong. You can't use single sideband. Quite possibly you could. I don't know how dated this chart is, but phone and image. Phone means your voice, your FM voice. That's the privileges you're allotted within that band. And RTTY and data, basically, if you want to do packet radio or APRS, you're allowed to do that within the allotted area. And then the little squiggly line, as you can tell by your legend here, you're only allowed to use CW or code, which is Morse code. So, yeah. Anyway, so that good question. Yes, 6 meters, absolutely. Okay, so single sideband is included as phone. Okay, yeah. So Joe is backing me up because of my lack of knowledge. So, have I done anything with APRS yet? The only thing really technically that I've done with APRS is just send a couple text messages via DMR radio. I do know that my radio, especially my Anytone 578, I actually bartered for that radio by trading a bike for it. That is APRS capable. For me, with the setup I have in my house with nothing being plugged into a computer, and if anybody's wondering what APRS is, APRS stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System. That is a digital mode or even an analog mode that you can use to transmit messages. You have to have a radio that'll decode it. It'll work on analog, it'll work on digital as well. The only thing I've done is send text messages. So James, good question, and I hope to experiment with it a lot more in the future. But for right now, I did something really stupid when I got in this hobby, and I do a lot of stupid things every so often. But I promised my wife not to spend any money for 2 years after I got my initial setup. And talk about foot and mouth. It's addicting. This hobby is very addicting. But it doesn't have to be expensive. I did get set up for disappointment in a couple of my radios yesterday, because they were accepting interference that would not allow them to receive a pure signal. So that kind of bothered me. But that being said, I think I might get into that a little bit more in the future there, James. Any other questions for me? Anybody else that may have just hopped in and has any questions about my experiences with ham radio, and maybe something they don't know that might interest them? Because I think in about 20 minutes here we're going to shut this down. But all right, Joe says he's going to be setting up for an APRS event in July. So let me ask you this, Joe. What frequencies will you be using? Are you going to do that on HF? And I'm going to feed my nicotine addiction, guys. Bear with me a minute. A lot better than smoking, but I still want to stop that eventually. No kidding. Now, is that going to be a 2 meter single sideband? Because I know that can, And what mountain in PA? Because you're probably going to have some serious elevation. And guys, if you don't feel like I'm answering your question the right way, keep in mind this is my very first live stream, and there is about a 20-second delay on the signal coming from my camera into YouTube, so I apologize for that. Anybody have any suggestions on how to prove that, let me know. But this is my first time doing a live broadcast. I'm getting old, and the older I get, the dumber I feel. Well, I don't feel dumb, it's just harder for me to learn. So the fact that I'm even on here... Actually, Eric, they're not doing too bad, but good to see you in here, buddy. Probably it's called 14 relay stations. 14 relay stations. Yeah, Eric. I think my lungs are the least of my problems at this point. but thanks for hopping in here, man. And you got any questions for me there, Mr. Eric? If it makes you feel any better, this is white water, well water, fortified with minerals and vitamins, unfiltered. So I might catch rabies later on if it's contaminated. You know, when I'm around all this RF radiation there, Eric, I think frying my brain and my skull when an antenna is only 3 inches from my face is a little more worrisome. But anyway, I was really satisfied and happy with the performance of my Anytone 878 yesterday. It was the only radio at Gambrel Park, and Joe, this is the first time this has happened. It was the only radio I had at Gambrel Park at 1,500 feet elevation that would actually receive... there we go, doing something stupid. It's the only radio that would receive... any kind of audio transmissions yesterday. So I was really disappointed. I'm wondering if they did something new up there. Now here's the sad part. This antenna in my right hand, this is a Nagoya, what they call a Nagoya NA320A. This is designed for tri-band use. It has the 220 megahertz frequency, not built in, but the capability to be able to transmit on that. This antenna is roughly 17 inches long, okay, which goes on this radio. All right. Now, yesterday, I was using this antenna on the hilltop, same location, same exact spot. This radio, in conjunction with bad filtering, considering it's only a $40 radio, bad filtering, what they call a direct conversion receiver on here with Baofeng radios, would not receive an audio signal from 5 miles away, okay? Alright, so this is why people hate Baofengs and where they have a tendency to fail in certain areas. So I'm just going to show the differences real quick. This is the Baofeng BFH7. This had the Abri antenna on there. Only received a transmission 5 miles away for about, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds. And this antenna is about 14 inches long. High gain antenna, proven antenna made by Abri. It's a Breeze antenna version of a Nagoya 771A, which are very efficient high gain antennas. Didn't want to work. Okay, so 2 long antennas, 2 high gain antennas. Now check out the antenna that was on the Anytone. And I'm putting them back on because I put these in a box on my way home yesterday. Nagoya 701, 8-inch whip. Okay, I believe it's 8 inches, maybe 7.5 inches. Received every transmission, and transmissions up to 40 miles away on the hilltop. So better filtering, much better conversion. Obviously these digital radios are much more efficient in how they receive, and they have to be, because when you're trying to get those weak signals, especially with digital radio, like I explained earlier, you could be 75 miles away, and if it's getting enough of a signal, it's going to be crystal clear. There's not going to be any static in the background. But once that signal's gone, it just drops off. So anyway, but beware of 5G. Well, believe it or not, Eric, I have privileges in 5G range. No, actually I don't, but I think generals do. 5 gigahertz has been common for a lot of operators, and I think they're talking about opening up more bandwidth. The only downside, and I was just warning about the 5G, the only downside about the 5G is you got to run a lot of power for it to be efficient because the bandwidth is so tight. It's the wavelength, I should say. The wavelength of how it comes out of your radio and the carrier is just such a tight carrier, and it has no penetrating power. And that's why a lot of people, you know, when it gets to you, it's great. But it's not really practical for downtown, like in urban areas, and that's why they're putting antennas up every 1,000 feet for 5G, because it's so inefficient. It's like the worst thing they could use. Honestly, if they would have used 3 gig, okay, and boosted the power from the antennas, or got antennas for the mobile cell services maybe a little higher, they would work a lot more efficiently than 5G ever will. And the higher up they go, I mean, dude, it's just a number. It's so stupid what they're doing. They're actually, you know, you know, in ham radio they have what they call a duty cycle. Okay, after so much exposure, you need to stop exposure for at least the same amount of time. So that 5G service, I don't think it would cause cancer unless you're very close to the source of it. And then it could definitely cause a lot of health problems, but that's with any RF radiation. You know, any RF radiation will do that. And that's why I think it's funny, if you guys have wish.com or whatever, think about this. You have a radio up to your face. You need to have it up to your microphone, your face up to your microphone to be able to talk. This radio is rated at 5 watts. It actually puts out 6.5 watts. Okay, but look how close the antenna is to my face. Okay. Will that cause problems in the future? Probably not, because I try not to rely on my handy-talkie too often. But when you have radios being advertised for 25 watts, I really wouldn't want that rattling on in the back of my brain there. So anyway, any other questions? I'm going to get ready to shut this broadcast down here in about another 13 minutes, and I hope everybody's found something useful out of this. Like I said, I'm new to this. I'm only a year and a half in, just under a year and a half in. And once again, the whole purpose of my channel was to just share my experiences over the year and what I enjoy the most. And I encourage everybody, you know, when you get into the hobby, you're going to have ham radio operators saying, oh, you need to do this, or you need to do this. Check out this next new thing, or check out this thing. I'm going to tell you what, don't go with popular belief when it comes to the digital modes of radio. All these digital modes, except for DMR radio, are in their infancy. So I would say just do what suits you the most. I've experienced Yaesu Fusion. I'll answer your question in just a second, Eric. His question was, when it comes to antennas, does size matter? Good question. So I've experienced Yaesu Fusion. I've experienced DMR radio. I've experienced D-Star. D-Star is pretty cool. It's allowed me global communications and all that fun stuff. So what I've reverted to the most, just because of the versatility of it, has been the Anytone 578. The ability that I can take my ham radio and text your cell phone, which I demonstrated earlier in this video, was pretty cool. I like the DMR. There's a learning curve to using it, but once you've learned how to program it, you could program it on the fly, or you can use the computer programming software for it. And the fact that you can use it like a Nextel cell phone, like they used to have back in the day, I think that's really cool too. And like I said, most Brandmeister repeaters will support you being able to have that private two-way communication. Now, mind you, it's not encrypted, because encryption in the United States with any kind of communication is illegal, even using scramblers. So you're going to see a lot of scramblers out there too. So Eric's question is, when it comes to antennas, does size matter? A properly cut antenna to proper length and proper SWR is what matters. So you have to be able to know what bandwidth that you're operating in. And there are antenna. Okay, so elevation is key, antenna type is key, and there are different types of antennas that go along with each bandwidth.
Okay, they have what they call quarter wave antennas. They have half wave antennas, and they have 5/8 wave antennas. Okay, I prefer what they call 5/8 wave antennas because they have a tendency to keep your transmissions lower to the ground. They kind of finger out and stay kind of closer to the ground when they radiate their pattern from the antenna. Half wave antennas kind of have a tendency to go up and out. Quarter wave antennas always try to go even more exaggerated up and out. So when you're in a mobile application and you're trying to reach a local repeater, a lot of people use quarter wave antennas. I really don't care if I'm using 50 watts of power and I'm within 20 miles of that repeater, or even at 5 watts of power with the antenna that I use when I'm mobile, I'm getting into that repeater full quieting. Okay, as long as I've got that line of sight and I'm not down more than 300 feet elevation below the line of sight of that repeater, I'm getting into that repeater. So it's not necessarily the size, it's the design, because when they design these antennas, you could put coils in the antennas to trick that antenna into being electrically longer than what it is. Okay, prime example, you can look this up online. One of the best sellers right now, they consider it, I believe it's what they would consider a triple stacked 5/8 wave antenna, but it's only that long. It's that big around, and it's meant to sit on the side of the top of your vehicle or on the trunk lid of your car. It's not meant to be put in the center of your car. It's made by a company called Compactenna. Now, they've been released for a while, but I'm going to tell you what, for efficiency and size, you're not going to find a better antenna that will perform the way that antenna has. And man, talking to my buddy, now I'm right now with where I currently live, I'm 500 feet above sea level. I also have a 10-foot antenna. It's a tri-band, but it's a 10-foot tri-band, 10-foot antenna, triple stacked. Basically, it's 5/8 over 5/8 over 5/8. It's 5/8 for 2 meter, 5/8 for 70 centimeter, and 5/8 for 220. So I'm getting the best possible propagation that I can from my elevation. So yeah, and that's a good comment there from you, John. For digital, I recommend looking at the repeaters that in your area that will be most common. Yeah, and you also, one thing that you want to take into consideration, depending on what you choose to do, you're going to want to see if you're going to go on a road trip and you see a high concentration of a certain type of digital mode repeaters or whatever. It just depends on what suits you. As long as now, the one thing I like, and I think some other radios will do this also, if I take an internet hotspot with me, connect that internet hotspot to my cell phone, okay, use the hotspot on my cell phone, all right, and take my Raspberry Pi with me, which is internet capable. As long as I have service to my cell phone, I can go cross country with my DMR handheld radio and talk around the world. That's why I like DMR, because it's in the palm of my hand. Now, can Yaesu Fusion do that? I'm not sure. I think they can, because as long as you can get your hotspot up and running, you can probably do that with your Yaesu Fusion handheld handy talkie. Now, when you're talking about Fusion, D-Star, and other forms like FT8 of digital communications, these are just branded names for each manufacturer. You have ICOM and Kenwood that specialize with the D-Star. You have Yaesu Fusion, which deals mainly with Fusion, Wires X, and FT8. A lot of people use it for FT8, but I don't think FT8's specifically for Fusion. I could be wrong on that because of, once again, my lack of experience. However, guys, like I said, whatever mode work. All right, Eric, good question. All right, so to answer your question, Eric, real quick, is whatever you think will suit your needs at any given time. And I'm going to tell you, like I tell everybody else, and people choose a specific thing, it's better not to to choose one specific thing, because if you try to use that one specific thing, it may fail because too many people are using it. So you want to broaden your communication as much as you can and as inexpensively as you can if you are only going to use it as a tool. Okay. Now, Eric, I've been into this hobby for a year, and I figured when I first started I would only use it as a tool. That's not the case. Now I can use it as a tool, but I can also use it as pleasure, new way to meet people. There's a whole bartering system amongst ham radio operators that you can't get anywhere else. They're genuinely a very good group and very good-natured type of people that you interact with when you meet ham radio operators. You don't want to limit in a disaster type of scenario what you would use. If you want secure communications, the best thing I could tell you would be use digital communications in one way or another, preferably DMR on my end, but that can vary from person to person. So digital communications have a tendency to be more private. Can they be monitored? Yes, but it takes a little extra time. There are people that can crack the code and figure out what's going on, but it would take time. But digital communications, simplex frequencies without the use of repeaters or the internet would be the most efficient during I feel during a zombie apocalypse. If it would be a zombie apocalypse, but come on, let's get real. We know it's not going to be zombie apocalypse. It's going to be either economic collapse or a major pandemic. We're on the verge of both, people. Just my opinion. But anyway, yeah. So I would say digital because it's not as widely used as far as simplex goes. And the good thing is, people wonder. Some people wonder, hey, why are DMR radios so much cheaper than an ICOM D-Star or a Yaesu Fusion or a Kenwood D-Star or any other type of communication? The reason being is because DMR is not a trademarked form of communication. It cannot be trademarked. Therefore, the equipment tends to be much more inexpensive. Now, does it make the radios lower quality? No. These Anytone radios are built like a tank. I mean, look, man, everybody that's in here, I'm going to show you this real quick just because I can. Okay. Still trying to get used to my software and everything, but we're gonna bring up my other camera. All right. This is one of the only Chinese radios I'll ever buy again. Okay. And the reason being is because I have dropped this from a 2-story building. I have dropped this doing 5 miles an hour out of my window of my truck. I've dropped it down the steps of my farmhouse. I have dropped this thing more times than I can count. I've got superficial damage on it here and there, but this thing is built like a tank. Okay, these radios are heavy duty, very good commercialized radios. Is it IP65 rated? No, but who wants to leave their radio out in the rain and take that risk? Okay, and then I've got the 578. Okay, that's also a commercial, well-built radio. Advertised 50 watts, putting out about 61 watts with the new antenna. Advertised 60 watts monoband, 220. This is the TYT 9000D. If you guys don't have the 1 1/4 band, I'd recommend picking up this radio. And since we're not on ham radio, I can tell you how much it costs. $145 on Amazon. Advertised 65 watts, but with quality control, it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. So 1 1/4. I got all my technician privileges pretty much covered, and I am studying for my generals so that I can get into the HF bands, because the HF bands is where it's really going to be. And I don't know if anybody's been watching the news lately. The Ukrainians, you wonder how they're putting up such a strong fight. Believe it or not, I think it has a lot to do with the ham radio operators out there being able to identify communications from Russians very early. I think Putin was trying to pull a fast one by using HF radio to communicate with his planes. But the Ukrainians were monitoring everything. Go figure. Now I'm wondering if they had to retrofit. I don't know if anybody else has heard any more news on that or not, but they were able to locate generals and take the generals out. They were able to do a lot of different things that Russia just didn't think they'd be ready for. So if you don't think being a ham radio operator could be helpful in a disaster scenario, I'm going to tell you what. I think being prepared is better than not being prepared. Overspending is stupid, okay, if you're going to use it as a tool. And if you're going to do it as a hobby, go ahead and splurge. But I'm not going to take my $500 radio out in the field to play with it. I'm going to take my $50 to $150 radio out and play with it. And I can't wait to get into the HF side of things. Well, guys, I've been at this for over 2 hours. Does anybody have any last-minute questions or comments and anything that I can answer? We'll do that. I'm going to give one more go-around for anybody that might have any questions. And Joe says Russia satellite network isn't ideal for aircraft communication, and that's why they still use HF. So Russia's paid a lot for their weapons and can't communicate how to use them. Ain't that smart? Let me tell you. That's like having a pencil with no lead. Anybody else agree? So, anyway. Well, guys, listen, I appreciate everybody that stopped in this evening. This was my first live stream. I think my next live stream is going to involve a review on the new ICOM IC T10, I think, is coming out. A lot of controversy with this new radio coming out because it's a direct conversion receiver in there, but I think the filtering with the ICOM radio will be a lot better. So I'm saving my shekels for that. And guys, keep in mind, I don't do this to make money. I just want to share my experiences. I know there's a lot of veterans in there that have been listening to me. And guys, if I made any mistakes, feel free to post the rude comments or whatever you want to post to coach me along my journey here. Also is trying to give some insight to people that I know to how great this hobby can be. I appreciate everybody's participation tonight. I hope you guys have a good evening. And 7-3 KC3 QPJ signing off from Farmhouse Ham Radio. You guys have a good evening.